Greetings, greetings, greetings. We are here in the lab. We're here in the lab. Now, I'll let you know with regards to this show, this for Run Tell That. Glad to have you all with us. Glad to have you all here. We tell folks again to share the information. This show was supposed to be a show in which had taped our own MLK celebration. That was Candidly Keisha, Coach Sam Carter, and also myself, and also all things relevant media guru, that is Julius Hall of the Rabble and also the Watchdogs. We have Ivan Cohen to come join us. Sister Tia Bradwell also joined us. Dr. Tanya Howard Hall joined us also. Former Commissioner Jay Jones also joined us. And so we were all together, and Jerome Irwin also of the A. Philip Randolph Institute. So we all were there. We did that Monday at MLK and Gwinnett Street. We had our own MLK celebration right there. Though they may say stop the parade, but guess what we did? We decided to go ahead, go for it, and we decided to go ahead and have our own MLK celebration. That's what we did. But what happened with regards to an issue, it was a glitch that occurred, whereas we were not able to get it to air. So that's why I'm here right now. And so the intentions were for that show to be aired today. So I'm going to do some things. And again, Chris Smith, Mike Kelly, yo, glad to have you all here. Glad to have you all here. So as opposed to doing the show, what we were going to do, that is that show that was right there. Because now I'm going to let y'all know that show was on fire. It was on fire. Fire. Yeah. Coach Sam Carter, Candidly Keisha, Gibson Carter, Keisha Gibson Carter, and myself. And so, yeah, Julius Hall right there. So the show is on fire. So we're not necessarily going to be on fire right now, but we're going to give it teak. So this is a special show also. We may have someone joining us. That's Brother Nadrania Enzi coming from New Orleans. So this show, what's the title of this show right here? Because again, it's not the MLK show, which we were going to be doing. This show is called No More King. No More King. No More King. Listen here. I am tired of the Dr. King stories. I am tired of the Dr. King madness. I am tired of that. So that's why this show is No More King. No More King. Now, some of y'all might be surprised about this, and good evening to you, Reverend Betty Jones. Glad to have you here. Sister Sherelle Grant, glad to have you, family, because you're part of the Day Clean family. Again, Brother Chris Smith, again, glad to have you. Come fire, because he's from Savannah State University. Which some of y'all know, I was the MLK speaker at Savannah State. So I'm going to share some things with you that I discussed there also. And that's why this show is a part of that No More King stuff. No More King. So give y'all some information. And Sister Natavia, glad to have you here also, because we're going to get into a conversation about something else that's tied to Dr. King. Now I say, No More King. The two most lied upon people in the United States, understand what I'm saying? The two most lied upon people in the United States are Jesus and Dr. MLK Jr. Guess what? I'll repeat for you all, and I say share. Those of you are looking at Run Tell That right now. So again, as I said, we were supposed to have our King show right here, but because of, again, technicalities with regards, so we can tape it. So that's why I'm now, this segment right here, I'm calling No More King, and I'll repeat for you. The two most lied upon people in the United States of America are Jesus and Dr. MLK. Their words are used by people and they lie on them so much, Jesus and Dr. King. Jesus alayhi salam. Y'all know Jesus, the great one. So, now if I was going to say on a worldly basis, but on the entire world, the two most lied upon people are Jesus and Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Again, you know, Jesus alayhi salam and Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. So those are two most lied people in the entire world. But we focus on the United States right now. I'm bringing it right here. I'm bringing it home right now. Because the words of Jesus are used to mislead, misguide people, and to cause them not to do. The words of Jesus are done by people who talk about they are touting their their religious knowledge. They go and do that, and they almost bully people with regard to that, for people sometimes not to take action. Yes, to the clergy. Some of you all absolutely bully people not to take action when they're supposed to take action. As we had shared on one of the other shows here, and Rebecca Rose, glad to have you here also, sister, that I tell folks this: Jesus came to the powerless. I'll repeat to you. Jesus came to the powerless. Jesus was not about looking out for the powerful. Jesus came to the people who were oppressed, the people who were losing some hope, the people who needed to have a Messiah to come along. That's why Jesus came about. Jesus came about to now to help the people to know they got to go about fulfilling God's word, because some of them are going straight because they were losing hope, because we were living in a world then that was hopeless for many people, for the masses of the people. So Jesus was not trying to look at and help out the powerful against the powerless. So guess what's happened? Right now, today, in the United States, there's someone else whose words are used with regards to, again, glad to have Ellis coming in from, again, from the great east side of Savannah, East Savannah in the house. Bam, the east side, usually it's a W, but this time it's an E for East Savannah in the house. We got the family all in the house. So now I throw it out there to you, let y'all know this. Dr. King's words are used also for people to not take action against wrong, against injustice. You call King the drum major for justice, but guess what? His words are used now in many circles by many people not to fight on behalf of the people. When they want to not stand up, they're going to tell the people that you should not stand up. You should not, that you're supposed to be silent with regard to this, that you just sort of prayed away. You should be like what Gandhi, take the teachers of Gandhi that King talked about, and then go and use that. Wow. Wow. That's what I just said. For those of you just not joining in, that Jesus and Dr. King words are used. They are lied upon by many people. On Sunday morning, people lying about Jesus. On Wednesdays and Bible study and all that, they're lying about Jesus. And now Dr. King, especially around this time of the year, they go and lie about Dr. King. So I'll give y'all some historical background on some of this right here. I've had people tell me that they were exposed to Dr. King. That was some people tell me. And so I'll let y'all know every now and then when I'm looking down here, I'm looking at some of the comments that are right here so that now I can respond to them if need be. So if you send your comments and make some statements, I'll go and respond to it. So sometimes it will pop up that our producer will put it up on the screen, but I want to make sure that I get it in a timely manner. But again, what happens is this, that people take the words of Dr. King and Jesus and they like just tear it up. And so there are some people who go and say that they were around Dr. King. There are approximately documented in Savannah, Georgia, that King is in Savannah, Georgia, maybe, I'm gonna be generous right now, no more than 5 times during the heyday of the Civil Rights Movement. No more than 5 times is Dr. King in Savannah, Georgia during the heyday of the Civil Rights Movement. And in fact, in Savannah, Georgia, guess what? They tried to keep Dr. King out. Or not, they tried to. They kept Dr. King out. People kept Dr. King out of Savannah. That's why, again, the Civil Rights Movement in Savannah, yeah, and they lie about socialists also. That's right, with regards to that, Rebecca Rose. So with Dr. King, the Savannah movement, the Coastal Georgia movement was one that was self-contained. And I'll let y'all know this, that Justin Bryant, my good brother Justin Bryant, he discusses right here. He talked about, and I like how he really said it too. We discussed that the movement in Savannah was right here. It was a self-born, self-contained movement in Savannah for civil rights. So Dr. King was not a prominent figure here in the movement. It was the local people right here. It was the local people. And I'm going to get into that about the local people. So with Dr. King, people have said to me at times, they said, the only person that could control me was Dr. King. And when they have said that to me, I'm saying to myself, like, Dr. King wasn't here like that all the time. So they're telling me this. And the people who say that are people who now in their 70s, in their 80s, they're the ones saying this type of stuff. And I'm saying, like, wow, they really think that we're stupid. That's why I talk about, again, hey, go, people lying on Dr. King, that they lie on Dr. King and say that Dr. King was the only one that can control. King wasn't here all the time. So who was controlling you those other times that when you were involved in the movement, when you are desegregating schools here? Who was the one that was basically controlling you? But people are saying that Dr. King was the only one that can control them. And guess what? Some of you who have probably heard them say that to you also in the Run Tell That family. Again, we say share, share, share. And you probably defer to them on that. That's why Lil Jamal, that's why he does what he does and try to tell people like, no, we can't be buying into this madness because it's lies right now. It's mythologies right now. And so the people who should get recognition sometimes don't get recognition based on the fact that others want to be, they want to puff themselves up. They want to make themselves be even better. No, stop that. So yeah, so people going to say that. Again, you all have heard people talk about how they're going out to the beach at Tybee Island. That some people are not. People saying that they were at the beach, were not at the beach. And then guess what happened? I have people that murmur to me, and some of you all know too. Some people come and murmur, you all say, so-and-so wasn't there at the beach. They wasn't there at the beach. They go and say this. But then here go the masses of you all, you defer to them and you let them go and tell you this. And so they just go ahead and lie to you about the civil rights history here in Savannah. Then others don't get acknowledged. So I'm going to throw something out there to y'all that, again, as I share with y'all, King, they did not want King here in Savannah. That was the movement. That was the issue. Did not want King. WW Law did not want Dr. King here. The NAACP were the ones on him about not having King come to Savannah because, again, they thought it'll be more havoc in Savannah. And people were talking about Dr. King, about with regards to them not making the marches that they're engaging in and people not getting arrested, and that the NAACP guy come and help them out. Because, again, it was that type of stuff going on. So people act like when people now have these different groups that are now not happy with one another, that they not go and think that, oh, it's something brand new, that Black people can't get along, that organizations can't get along. Listen here, you're trying to romanticize this story. There were groups of people who did not get along. SNCC did not fully get along with the SCLC and the NAACP. NAACP did not get along with the SCLC. So we need to stop that right there. And you already know how they had treated the Nation of Islam with Malcolm them, and then Malcolm Muslim Mosque Incorporated. You already know how that was an organization of African unity. You already know how they already twist those stories up. And the Black Panther Party and the Deacon for Defense, you already know how some of that stuff got twisted. Yo, listen, I'm saying to y'all, we gotta stop embellishing this stuff. That's why I say no more King. Please time out with regards to y'all King stories when y'all are lying. I can't take it no more. And guess what? At least I got enough sense to notice. But look at the babies that y'all are lying to. Excuse me, not any of you who are looking at front tell that right now. I'm talking to people who you know that you hear them saying, and nobody questions them about any of this right here. You need to question them about this. Some of them who say they were in Savannah in the movement were not in Savannah. They were in St. Augustine, Florida. Those who said that King was here all the time, King was not here all the time. That's incorrect. So they need to stop that. And people go and throw that out there. And people make it seem like that Dr. King was the only person who can control them. As I said, that's a problem. And so now, what I want to get into is one of the things, one of the great words of King that is basically twisted and thrown out there to basic, as I say, to emasculate liberation. Ooh, y'all heard I say, to emasculate liberation, to make liberation, suffering from, dysfunction, erectile dysfunction. Liberation is not able to be erect. It's dysfunctional. It's something when people go and talk about the I have a dream speech. So some of you may not have seen the YouTube speech that I did for Savannah State for the King celebration, in which my people in 1501 at Savannah State University, and now some of my folks at Georgia Southern University heard me say that I detest the I have a dream speech. I detest it. I detest it. I despise it. I dislike it. Because that speech has been used to basically now water down movements for freedom for people, for water down movements to help people not basically be alleviated of this pain and this anguish that I talk about. That has been used to tell people to just basically defer to the pain and to the punishment, almost like captive Africans. They were told this in the time of captivity, that you get yours in the by and by. The I have a dream speech has been used to propagate this notion of we will get along one day, sometime soon, but not right now. That has been used for that purpose, and it is used by this person purpose. And who's used that more so? The media has passed that on to us. And then guess what happens? Then you have ministers, Black ministers, Caucasian ministers, Latino ministers, Asian ministers, other people with knowledge, they all pass it on too. And they then feed it to the masses of the people. So then the masses of the people think that when they're going to say, Dr. King said, we all got to get along, and it's about the content of our character, and that is it. But they never talk about that. King said that King said Afro-American students must be involved in the movement, and they must be about taking action. They must be intimately involved in the movement, taking action. That's what King discussed. And he said, you know why you got to have the African students doing that? Because then it will cause Caucasian students to not do the same thing. Caucasian young people to do the same thing. That they got to be involved. They got to be heavily involved. And then you got to let them go and do their thing. Yes, King talked about nonviolence, and he remained tied to that. But now I'm going to give you all some secrets right now. I'm throw something out there. Yes, sir, Brother Chris Smith. This is what we do. We want to tell that we empower, we inform, and enlighten. So now I'm going to tell y'all something, and some people are going to get mad with me. Now, guess what? Guess what? When Dr. King, Martin Luther King Jr. talked about nonviolence, guess what? I'm going to let y'all know this. Y'all know Daddy King, right? Y'all know Martin's daddy, Daddy King. Y'all know Martin's daddy. But guess what? Dr. King, Daddy King, he carried a gun with him. Daddy King had a weapon with him. Wait a minute, Jamal. What are you talking about? I'm letting y'all know that Daddy King says stuff like this. He said, Mark might be about the nonviolence, but I'm gonna make sure that I'm protected. Wait a minute. Oh my God. So that's knocking out some of that mythology that y'all feel about the King family, because y'all got Jamal Touré. See, that's the thing I try to tell people. Y'all don't understand who I am. Some of y'all know who I am. Y'all know what I'm about. So now I try to, don't be trying to play with me about this stupidity. Don't come to me. I tell you, never try to challenge me about when I spit something out. Never try to challenge me as if I don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm letting it know, and I will bust the mythology, because that's what I do. We are a myth buster. Now, when it comes to cultural mythology, we share that with you because that's about empowerment. But when it comes about mythology regarding histories, guess what? We're going to knock that out. Daddy King was not down to nonviolence, but he said, I got to play this up because this is what Martin is about. That's what I'm going to do. But Daddy King carried him a weapon. Wow. That's right, Tanya Hall. Daddy King was packing. Yes. Yes. And here goes. Bubba wrote this all. See, another shooting right there on Skidaway, a complex off of Skidaway. And this is part of the issue that Alderman Keisha gets the cards we're talking about. That again, we have people who are disenfranchised right here. And this disenfranchisement is the same thing goes to what Dr. King was talking about, that people tend to ignore. And they go and say, we need to ignore that type of stuff. See, because we just need to sit at the table. Guess what? It is no longer about sitting at the table. That is not good enough. We should not sit at the table. That's not what we need to be doing. If you are at the table, guess what your job is? It's not just to sit there at the table. Your job is to now to create policies and laws that not help the community. That is what you're supposed to be doing. That is the deal. You don't sit at the table just to be happy to sit at the table. Yes. And again, my sister, Lillian Baptiste, that's right. And so now we got Lillian Baptiste on here. So I'm going to let y'all know. See the stuff I'm talking about? Guess what? It comes from a foundation that I had long ago at a place called Savannah State University, also called Savannah State College. That, again, a great man that was the professor of Lillian Grant Baptiste and myself and thousands of others. The man name is Dr. Haynes Walton Jr. So when I talk about Dr. King, let me tell y'all part of the foundation that when I spit the stuff out, that the man that was called Dr. Haynes Walton Jr., he was called the expert on Dr. King's political philosophy. Dr. Haynes Walton Jr., who taught at Savannah State University, was the expert on Dr. King. So guess what happened? He gave it to his scholars in his classes, like Lillian Grant Baptiste and myself and others. That's why we got Victor Cooper and others, Nadja Enzi. This is where we got people trying to figure out why do we act like we do? It's because we got this from Dr. Walton. Dr. Walton trained us to be like this. Dr. Walton was, again, the person who was called the expert on Dr. King's philosophy. So now y'all understand why you can't come to me about that I have a dream speech and make it seem like that's all to it and that's it. Absolutely incorrect. And so with regards to this, Dr. King was about saying nonviolence, but Dr. King also understood that when you have these situations that flare up with regards to riots, that again, this is basically the act of the people who have been so oppressed that this is the only option that they have right now. You have something called the American Revolution. Why did that come about? That wasn't, say, a peaceful revolution like Malcolm. It wasn't peaceful, but it was that here go these people who now have said that Great Britain has used us totally and that we now must stand against this right here. And we have no choice but to break away. And when we say revolution, we must fight. That's how this nation came about. But when it comes to what we know as the civil rights movement, we're going to tell it has to be nonviolence and that we just want to pray about it. That is not what it was about. It's about action. That's about action. So now that comes directly to what I was sharing with y'all about what happened in Savannah, Georgia. In Savannah, yes, Dr. Tanya Howard Hall. And now I'm going to get in this with you because, again, you are one of the examples of what we are about, Dr. Tanya Howard Hall, about being at the table. that when they talk about direct action in Savannah, Georgia, Reverend Hosea Williams, Reverend Hosea Williams, he was one of the people that did not want Dr. King to come here. Now, also, you have the NAACP. I gotta let y'all know, NAACP and June didn't want him to come here. But also, Hosea them did not want King to come here. Oh, wait a minute, Jamal, Jamal, what you just said? That's not what people going to talk about right now. When they talk about Hosea and Savannah and Ben Clark and Piccolo, they don't talk about. That is what came into play. Henry Trash Brownlee, again, with regards to Big Les Hankerson, that's what came into play. They did not want, because you know why? They were dealing with direct action. They didn't want anything to soften the blow here. So that's what they are affiliated with the SCLC. Yes, they were. The Chatham County Crusade for Voters had their office right there on MLK, as we know today, on West Broad Street and Park Avenue. Again, MLK and Park Avenue, or I'll go back in the day, West Broad Street and Park Avenue. That's why they were about direct action. They understood that it cannot be about just about praying about a matter. It's about taking action regarding a matter. Rewind. It's not about just about praying about a matter. It's about taking action about a matter. Mr. Producer, put that up. It's not about praying about a matter. It's about taking action about a matter. So I just want to throw that out there. So that's what they understood, the Chatham County Crusade for Voters. And so they were able now to have other people, WW Law and others also began to understand that they also had to take it up a notch too. And WW Law even contacted the national NAACP and said, we need to have more funding here because of what's going on with the Chatham County Crusade for Voters. See, that's part of the history. Now, just throw it out there. How y'all try to make it seem like we are all kumbaya type stuff. That has never been like that. Because again, you got to have all these elements right here that bring about freedom. And that's what happened in Savannah. It was not, no matter what they try to tell you, that we have prayed our way out of this right here. No, it wasn't. It was about direct action. Direct action coupled with something else. And so when we talk about people at the table, that's what it was about. It was not, we need to have people at the table who are going to make demands to bring about policy changes. And I got to throw it out there. One person who's on the who's looking at Run Tell That right now, Dr. Tanya Howard Hall. She is one of the people at the table right now, not just sitting at the table trying to protect other people and protect a system. She's there trying to look out for the children. So Dr. Tanya Hall is trying to working on policies to benefit the children. So that's why I'm saying, that's why I'm so glad that she's tuned in, because that's what's going on. She is right here fighting for us in our community, for our children, because when you sit at the table, it's not enough for you to be at the table. It's about you making change. It's not about you just praying about a matter. It's about you taking action about a matter. Yeah, Dr. Tanya Howard Hall, one of those representatives who's doing that right now on the political front. And I need you all to assess other politicians here in Chatham County and look at them now. But again, look at, are they at the table and just sitting at the table and maintaining the status quo? Or are they at the table now trying to generate new policies and laws that can help people, that can change the dynamics from people being shot on Skidaway? Again, as Bubba Rosenthal threw out there. So again, look at those people. Just because they're your friends, like you heard me say, just because they're your friends, your family members, your church members, that is not enough for them. They must now also be about trying to take care of this entire community. And if you are elected from one part of the city of Savannah, that does not mean that's your only part that you're supposed to be concerned. You're supposed to be concerned about the entire city of Savannah. Because guess what? If you got family members here, your families just don't live in one part of Savannah. They live in all of Savannah. So you got to make sure that all is taken care of. You are elected to a position, being coming from Dr. Haynes Walter Jr., from a certain area to now be a voice for everybody in that city, in that town, in that county. So again, Dr. King, when we talk about I have a dream, that has been used by the media and other people, and I'm going to let you all know, even by people who are anti-King, to now placate the system of liberation. That is being used to placate the system of liberation, or to snuff out the system for liberation, to snuff out the drive and the desire and the natural inclination for liberation and for elevation. That is what is being used. That is being used for that purpose right now. Yes, taking the words of Jesus, taking the words of Dr. King, and now using that to basically destroy the hopes of people. Yeah, when they came along, not to destroy the hopes, but to help the people, and now let their hopes be manifested. So that is what this has been about, and that's why I tell people that's what this community has been about, and that is what we are about totally. We are about elevating the entire community. That is about helping everyone in this community. That again, and something I share people this, I tell people this at When you understand other languages and other cultures, you can make bridges and connections. You can make bridges and connections. You understand other languages and other cultures. But when you don't understand other languages and other cultures, you can't make any connection. So then you're all isolated. And so now you work on and operate on what I tell people is fear. You operate on fear. You operate on fear. And so you think people like are different from you when actually you're all the same. That guess what? I gotta be concerned about not just say the west side of the city of Savannah. I gotta be concerned about the east side of the city of Savannah. I gotta be concerned about the south side of the city of Savannah. And I gotta be concerned about all the children in the city of Savannah and all the residents of the city of Savannah. It is not natural for a human being not to have compassion, not to have empathy. That is what we're about. We are supposed to be a people that have empathy and have compassion because we understand that we could be in the same boat also. So when Dr. King is talking about some of this, that's what it's about. It's about you having passion, having compassion and having empathy for other people also, knowing that what you desire for yourself, you desire for your brother. Wait a minute. Oh my God. Wait a minute. 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 Bernard Brown, Rashawn, we see my brother Jack Salad, my brother from HBJ. And so that's right. So glad to have y'all. You desire for your brother and sister what you desire for yourself. Wait a minute. That's like scripture right there. That's how we should be living our lives. That we desire, if we desire the best for ourselves, guess what? Then I must desire that for other people too. I'm not supposed to hoard it. I'm not supposed to hold on to it for myself. No, that's not what it's about. It's about me making sure that everyone is elevated. Because guess what? When you elevate everyone in the society, your society is elevated. Some of y'all heard me say that. And that's what this has been about. And so when we talk about Dr. King and I Have a Dream, then that just stops everything right there. It just stops. I'm like saying, no. That is not what it's about. It is about you having compassion. And I'm going to give this example, y'all. I had interned in Washington, D.C. One of the things that stunned me the first time I'm in D.C. and I'm going to work at my internship at People for the American Way, which is a First Amendment organization. And so I'm going to work and I'm getting off the metro. That is basically the subway station. I get off the metro and I go up and then I come up and I'm looking at DC. I'm so happy to be in Washington, DC. But then I look to my left at the metro station. I see homeless people. I see the homeless people. I see the homeless people. I see them. Now I see them, but everybody else is doing just like this. They're walking past them. I'm looking at this like, wait a minute, what is it? How is everybody walking past these people that you obviously see that these people have some issues going on, some pain and some anguish happening in their lives? So I'm looking at this like, wait a minute. And so let y'all know what happened with me, how I am. Eventually, guess what started happening? I will begin talking to some of the people, these homeless people, because now some of them are trying to make money, they're shining shoes. And so now what happens is this, that I'm engaging them in conversation. I'm finding out their stories. I'm finding out one of them is from Eufaula, Alabama. I said, wait a minute. I said, my homeboy's from Eufaula, Alabama. So we begin talking. So I'm not talking to other people. I'm not talking to folks. And so that, for me, guess what? I was not like all these other people. I was not just going past them because I knew these were human beings right here. These were my fellow Americans right here. These were fellow citizens of this country, of the world, that I had to connect with them. And some people, you shouldn't be doing stuff like that. No, because I understood what Dr. King was about. I understand what Jesus is about. I understood that I had to have concern and compassion for these people right here who might be downtrodden for a second. But then if I could say some word and give them some word or something like that to help them along the way, that they can go to another level, that's my job. Because my struggle is not as intense as their struggle. So that's why that helps me to understand that sometimes I shouldn't complain about some things. So that's why I'm just throwing it out there to y'all. So that's why it is not sensible, nor is it logical, nor is it honest, nor is it godly for you to see people in pain and in anguish and see issues in a community and you say nothing about it, but then you try to throw in and say, I have a dream and that I'm just supposed to pray about it and that's it. I'm like, you don't pray about it, you take action about it. Again, Mr. Producer ain't put that up, but I'm just saying it right there. But thank you, Sister Sherelle. But again, yes, that's what this is about. That's why I say no more king, no more king, no more king, no more. I don't want to hear no more about the mythology of king. I want to deal with the true king that Dr. Walton talked to us about. And now, as I share with y'all, I detest the speech that King talks about, that people use about, I have a dream on Washington, D.C., on Washington, D.C. Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I'm going to do this for y'all again, help you out on something. As I said, to share with you all, the Chatham County Crusade for Voters, that was the SCLC affiliate here in Savannah, Georgia. And SCLC, created by Dr. King and other Black ministers. So that's created, they had the affiliate right here. And as I shared with folks on Monday, Dr. King did hang out on West Broad Street because he went to the pool halls. He went to the pool halls with Trash Brownlee, with Big Les. So now let me tell you about this group called the Chatham County Crusade for Voters. That they, as I shared with you, they were about direct action. But guess what the other thing they were tied to also? They was about the masses of masses. Because the NAACP, now no matter how some people try to project it, they were representing a certain class of people in the city of Savannah. A certain class, a certain group of people. And so Reverend Jose Williams, they said they wanted to have more of the people involved, the masses of the people, because not everyone was members of the NAACP. Yes, they had the youth involved with regards to it, the youth chapters, but guess what? It was not a lot of the masses of the people were not necessarily there. So the masses of the people, that's what Jose Williams said, we got to be about this direct action. We got to get the people more infused in this right here. And some in the NAACP were shying away from that because they wanted a certain element. They wanted to have the educated folks and then use as cannon fodder the young people in some cases and use some of, again, some few of the masses. But Jose don't want, again, that person who was on that street corner. They want to get them brothers on the street corner, them sisters on the street corner. They want to get them out there. The ones who they might call derelicts. The same, like I say, who you walk past that metro. The same way, want to get them out there saying that these people, because they have a vested interest in this right here. And that's what occurred. That's what transpired. So with that, Jose Williams doesn't make that move. And so they make that move. And so Dr. King, because something is attributed to Dr. King that he says in Savannah, that is not necessarily said in Savannah at the time, but he says this, that Dr. King, when he talked about Savannah, is the most excuse me, let me rewind on this right here. Rewind. That when we talk about direct action, what was the other thing I said that they had to couple with? They coupled direct action with economic action. That's why they had the boycotts. They understood it's about direct action that you let the world know this is a problem here and we got to rectify it. But you now got to have this other component, the economic boycott, that is to hit them in the pockets. Bam, hit them in the pockets. They did that for 18 months. And Reverend Jose Williams and others understood that. But they understood they had to go to the people. That's why Trash Brownlee. That's why you're going to also have the individual by the name Big Les Hankerson, who still have children right here. They are the ones that now going to the pool hall. The ILA, how do you think the ILA got involved in it? Y'all don't realize that? It was Big Les and Trash Brownlee, though. The ILA wasn't necessarily doing with the NAACP. See, again, but we create these notions right here saying we've been involved in the movement. You were involved in the movement because of the Chatham County Crusade for Voters and Jose Williams, Big Claude, Piccolo, and all that. That's how they got involved. That was what it came about. No matter how y'all try to shape it, make it sound that was the burgeoning effort that came about. No, it was now they're going directly to those brothers at the ILA. That's what occurred. And so now this is the deal. That here go these people. They now got direct action going on. They're doing economic boycott. And Dr. King comes to Savannah, Georgia. He comes to Savannah, Georgia for a conference. What is the conference? The conference is the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. The SCLC, their conference was held here. One of their early conferences was held right here in Savannah, Georgia. Oh, they don't tell you about that in civil rights history in Savannah. They don't let you know that. That's why King is here. That's one of the cases when I can say King has been like about 5 times. That's what the deal is. King is here for the conference. And that is when King goes and says, Savannah is the most desegregated city south of the Mason-Dixon line. That same comment, that's what goes on. That King says that. And he put Savannah on the map with regard to that. That King is saying, listen here, Savannah, Georgia has done more about desegregation than any other city south of the Mason-Dixon line. Savannah, Georgia, he says in Savannah, Georgia, at the SCLC conference. Now, why is that significant? Because that is also when King is about endorsing a man by the name of Lyndon Johnson. Yes. King is about endorsing Lyndon Johnson, the efforts of Lyndon Johnson, President Johnson. He is now basically pushing and promoting the efforts of Lyndon Johnson's efforts. So the historical context that is for Savannah that is so important that we don't understand that. So when we going to talk about this, that this is done before the Civil Rights Act being signed in, that King is not using this platform in Savannah, Georgia, to not let Johnson know, listen here, I support you. We down with you on this right here. We will make this happen right here. And that now I'm letting everybody know that this city has done something that now will be a showcase for all of us in the United States. Wow. So now some of y'all understand why I love this city right here. Some of y'all now understand why I love this environment right here, why I love this place right here, because I understand how important this place is to American history. I understand how important this place is to human rights. I understand that this is what I understand. A man by the name of Dr. Ralph Mark Gilbert and Dr. Laurie Gilbert also said the same thing prior to Hosea saying we got to get the people more involved in this. That's why Dr. Gilbert was able to cause the movement here, the NAACP, the mushroom like that. When he now leaves, that's when now it goes back to a certain group of people. Now, some of y'all get offended by that. Don't get offended. Understand, I'm just giving you the deal. That's why Dr. Gilbert was able to, the great man that he was. He and Mrs. Gilbert, the great woman that she was. And she went on, as I shared with some people, Mrs. Gilbert went on a human rights, you heard what I just said? I didn't say civil rights. She went on a human rights tour throughout the entire United States. This woman who was right here in Savannah, Georgia, goes on a human rights tour throughout the entire country, Dr. Gilbert's wife. And she's still living today. How many of us know that? She's still living right now today in New York. So now I throw it out there. So King now goes and uses Savannah as a platform to now throw it out to Johnson and say, yo, check this out. We got a city that has done something here, and that this is what this movement should be about. This is what you should be about right now. Savannah, Georgia. That's why I say I love this place right here. And so now the King that I love, the speech of King, one of the speeches that I love by King that my father would play, because my father, Claude Lee Jr., would play this when we traveled from Savannah, Hilton Head. He'd put his 8-track in, y'all. Some of y'all remember the 8-track. Now, some of y'all who don't know nothing about 8-tracks, you know, but that's something that would be put inside the cars too. It's just like CD players, all that. But again, it goes along with cassette players. But my dad put in that 8-track, and we are listening to Dr. King from Savannah, from Dodge City to Hilton Head to Polk. We listen to it. We listen to it. He's driving, and we listen to Dr. King, and Dr. King is talking about why he opposed the war in Vietnam. And I tell folks, when King is talking about this, King now moves to a point where he is international in focus. He is at the same point that Malcolm was at when Malcolm is not assassinated. That Malcolm is more international in focus. Now, don't get into the mythology about Malcolm, you know, how he had to go to Mecca and see people. That's some mythology. That's another show that we could do on that, but that we ain't doing that right now. So, but Dr. King now is at the same point that others have now gone to, like Ida B. Wells did when she now went to Europe, went to England to talk about lynching of black men and black women in the United States in the 1800s and come to the early 1900s, where people dispute her in England, but later on the facts come out that she was absolutely correct, and those people in England had to then shut their mouth. But then here go what happens. What occurs is this, that now you have King saying that what is happening in Vietnam, or what's happening throughout the entire world, in the Congo, in South Africa, in Asia, in Europe, we must be concerned about that. King is like saying, if you see oppression in one part of the world, it is a direct impact on us also in this part of the world. Ooh, what did I just share with y'all? I talked about this thing. I said that when you understand other cultures, when you understand other cultures, other languages, you make bridges and connections. So King is not doing the same thing what I'm talking about. That King is not saying, listen here, we got to see what's going on in this world, and we make connections to those people right there, and we can make bridges and connections to help them, so then that way they don't have pain and have anguish. That's why I tell people that is the King that I love. That's the speech by King that I love. One of those speeches I love by King, that now he is looking at that squarely, and he is saying that, listen, just because I live in Atlanta, just because I live in New York, just because I live in Attapulgos, Georgia, just because I live in No Plains, Texas, just because I live in Carlsbad, California, just because I live in Portland, Oregon, just because I live there, I should be concerned about the people who live in, you know, the southern part of India. I should be concerned about the people who are called the Roma people. Some of y'all, oh, okay, Roma people. Let me tell y'all, Roma, R-O-M-A, Roma, who are the Roma people? They face discrimination right now. They face housing discrimination employment discrimination, and even educational discrimination. And I just told some people about the Roma people. The Roma people are what you call the gypsies. In Europe, Roma people, gypsies in Europe are discriminated against based on economics, housing, education. Yes, yes. So guess what? The same experience. So guess what? Oh, why do I know that? Because I know other cultures. Not that I know all languages, but I know other cultures. So I'm able to make a bridge. So that's why I tell people that's the beautiful thing. And that's what King was talking about. But I don't hear people talk about that type of king. I don't hear that. Dr. Haynes Walton Jr. made us understand that at Savannah State. That's what we gathered from Savannah State with Dr. Haynes Walton Jr. Again, that we will not be compartmentalized to think about that type of stuff. That again, that is just about I have a dream. That we're now going to look at the more powerful king. That more powerful king is now becoming international focus, but something else is happening with that king too. And so now give you information as to why I love this place right here, why I love my hometown, why I love my home area, my homeland, Hilton Head and Savannah, Georgia, everything in this area, going on down to Riceboro, going on down to Camden County, going on up to Charleston, going to Myrtle Beach, going to Jacksonville, North Carolina, going on down to St. Augustine. Why I love my homeland? Because it is special. Because what happened, King says something in his last days. In his last days, Dr. King, in his last days, he's talking about some things. And this is when people are now upset with him about this. That Dr. King, remember I talked about how here it was about direct action, but also economic action. At this point in his life, that is not discussed. Basically is not discussed. When you hear about Dr. King's life, you hear about 1963 and I Have a Dream. But nobody goes to 1968, 1967, and they now begin to hear King talk about why he opposed the war in Vietnam. But then also, King is not talking about economics. He's not talking about poor people who are in the Appalachians, who are Caucasian. He's talking about poor people who are in the South, African people. He's talking about poor people who are in the barrios, that is Latinos throughout the country. He's talking about, again, poor people. He's talking about the Asian. He's talking about everybody. He's talking about the people who are affected by poverty in this country. That Dr. King is not discussed. And he was saying that we must change the entire dynamics. And that King says something that, okay, Rebecca Rose says something, and that most people don't even discuss this right here. So I'm going to let y'all know. Dr. King had said something. Dr. King said that we make so much money in this country that there could be a guaranteed income for everybody in this country. It could be a guaranteed, Dr. King said it could be a guaranteed income, that nobody could be poor. No one should be poor in this country because we have so much wealth in this country that people can have a guaranteed income for them to be able to at least have decent housing, have food, have shelter, have education. Dr. King said that. Jamal, nobody talks about that. I know. Dr. King said that this country is so wealthy that people can still have all this wealth, but people in this society, everyone in this society can have a guaranteed income. And some people get confused when they talk about it's not about laziness. King is saying that we have so much money made in this country right here that nobody should be impoverished at all. That everyone can have a lifestyle that is decent and they have a quality of life. How many of y'all knew that about Dr. King, that Dr. King had talked about that? Dr. King understood about economics. But going back to, again, as I said, why I love this area right here, because 103 years before Dr. King, there's someone else who said something like that in Savannah, Georgia. He said this in January 1865. This man is a minister also, and he's right here out of a place called Yamacraw. He's from a place called First Bryan Baptist Church, historic First Bryan Baptist Church. And so Reverend Garrison Frazier tells General Sherman that we must have land. Must have land to take care of ourselves and have a surplus, that we can engage in business. That is about economics, that we just can't have political rights. We must have economic rights also, because you can't have the political and not have the economics, because they go hand in hand. Direct action and economics go hand in hand. That is Dr. King. That's what Dr. King was talking about 103 years later when it was first said in Savannah, Georgia. Wow, Jamal, what are you talking about? That's why I tell you, this place is special right here. And most of us sleep on how special our hometown is, how our home area is, our homeland is. We sleep on how special our homeland is. Because again, we got somebody else telling the stories about who we are here. And so that's why Dr. King had made that move with regard to that in 1968. He is now pushing that. That's why you have something called the Poor People March. You had the March on Washington, but then they had to stop the movement when it now comes down to the Poor People March. That was the movement with regard to now getting all people economically basically disenfranchised together now to go to Washington, D.C., and now let the president, let the entire country know we got to bring about parity. And that's why he's not emphasizing this point of, listen, this country is so wealthy that we can have a guaranteed income here for all people. Imagine what can happen in the lives of many of our children right here. As I said, traveling around Savannah, around Chatham County, throughout this area right here. If I knew that people had decent housing, everybody had decent housing. So again, they can have a quality. They don't have an issue about what's got to food security. They have food security. They have educational security. They have all that right now. They have safety. That we don't have the shooting. We don't have the criminal elements that are happening. That we're not going to see a community where everyone is thriving and surviving. Wow. That's what Dr. King was at. He was at that point. And what happened now, I'll give you all a background. I said the mythology. I said no more King. Some of these same people who said that they were down with Dr. King, let me tell you when they got down with Dr. King. Okay, now 63, they were all happy with Dr. King. But 64, 65, 66, people still right there. But then now what occurs is this right here. 67, 68, people not liking King. His numbers in the poll were going like this at one point. But then guess what? The numbers in the polls with Dr. King, by his popularity, were plummeted. They plummeted. They went down. In 1967, 1968, King was not a popular person anymore. Jamal, wait a minute. What are you talking about? Dr. King always popular. No. 1967, 1968. Again, that time period, 1966, King is going down because people are not liking King anymore. People ain't happy with King anymore because King is not taking on a different little line. King, even Lyndon Johnson, he won't let me know. I'm down with you, Mr. President. Lyndon Johnson even started calling him the N-word. Yeah, because he's pissed off with King now. King talked Vietnam and all that. That was he like, you should just say this stuff about political rights. That's it. Civil rights. That's it. You should not go become international. That's the history. Let y'all know that's the history. So now what occurs is that King now, his popularity, bam, it drops. So people with him, 63 and all that, these ministers, people who tell me they were down with King. And my thing is, how I get some of them, I said, where were you in 1968 regarding King? And some will go and lie to you. Just be frank with you. Some will go and lie to you and say they were down with King. No, it wasn't. Some of them started turning their backs on King. The NAACP turned his back on King. Jackie Robinson, his frat brother, turned his back on Dr. King. Yes, Jackie Robinson, who brought the color barrier in baseball, turned his back on King. Yeah. So you had these organizations around the entire country, these black organizations, these civil rights organizations, these black ministers were turning their backs on Dr. King. They was like, no room at the end for him, like they did with Jesus. No room at the end. No room at the end. No, you can't come in. We not deal with you, Dr. King, like that. Yeah, it was the people still trying to deal with King. So when King is assassinated in 1968, he is not at a low point. And so some of the people, I told y'all, when do some people not become supporters of King? Is after he is dead, after he is assassinated. Wow. The mythology. The mythology that they were down with Dr. King when in fact, many of them had turned their backs on Dr. King. It is only when he is dead that they now go and join with him. They vilified him before. Or I just said they vilified him before. They turned their backs on him. They shunned him. They shunned him. But when he now is killed, that's when it becomes safe to say, I'm down with Dr. King. That's when it now becomes safe for you. Now they're going to talk about, I have a dream, and that is promoted and thrown about as if that is the key word for everything that how we sort of function. Black ministers, Caucasian ministers, Latino ministers, Asian ministers, and also people who say they're about changing the world. No, it's not. You're about maintaining the world in the system that King was opposed to. You do not want to see elevation. You want to see stagnation. You do not want to see elevation. You want to see stagnation. And so, yes, and after death, because see, after they die, then it's like it's safe to not recognize them. It's safe that Benjamin Van Clark is an example of that. And in his death, people want to talk about Ben Clark, but when he was around here, Ben Clark was being also vilified because he was a bum. He was a whiner, some people called him. And so with that right there, that's why I said no more King. That's why people can't come running to me about their Dr. King story. They can't come running to me about how we should be functioning. If you see pain and anguish, it is your job to remove that pain and anguish. And I would say to anyone, I would say to African-American politicians, I would say to you all, when you want to go and throw Dr. King out there on how you should be functioning, looking out the content of character and all that stuff like that, then I also need you to look at bringing about what King had talked about, having at least a living wage right here in the communities that you are. Sit at the table with regard to that and make sure the policies come about, that you're not also going to have an educational system that is fair, that has parity. As the 5% is going to say, teach equality. That's what I said. Make sure that is happening. Make sure that's what occurs. Make sure that everyone in this community is able to have as the beautiful community, the great community. Oh, I'm about to tell you about Dr. Walton. Dr. Walton, again, as I say, is the philosopher, or the expert on the Dr. King philosophy, political philosophy. Dr. Walton taught us about a concept called communocrat. Communocrat, not bureaucrat, but communocrat. And what is the responsibility of a communocrat? That you now create policies to benefit communities. You help to benefit people, the people who are downtrodden in the society. You now help to create policies to not elevate the people in the society who are downtrodden in the society. Oh my God. So from the moment I was in this man's class named Dr. Haynes Walton Jr., I began to understand the power of what I need to do, because I had already understood that when I was at Herschel V. Jenkins High School. I had understood that. Understood that when I was at Wilder Middle School, at Myers Middle School. I understood that. Understood that when I was at Jacob G. Smith. I understood that when I was at Henry Street School. I understood when I was at St. Philip Monumental Kindergarten. I understood all of that. But now he helped to solidify even more when he now gave us the concept of the communocrat, the person who now sits at the table and creates policies to benefit the entire society. So yeah, that is a part of the King's legacy right there. And most people know nothing about that and discuss nothing about that. That is the Dr. King that I love, and that is the Dr. King that I applaud, and that's the Dr. King that I share with you on this day on Run Tell That. We say to all of y'all, share, share, share. Join us again next week with regard to our show, Run Tell That, the little brother show of the ATR shows. Again, everybody else, they got 5 hours to do shows. With us, we got just about 57 minutes, 55 minutes, 57 minutes, because they had to go do the Ravel. And we tell y'all, tune into the Ravel and to all the shows on ATR. A great format, and we have other shows coming about also. So again, I say to y'all, when you think about Dr. King, think about the concept of the communocrat, the person who sits at the table, the person who's concerned about the community and everyone in the community, that you look out for the least and the left out in the society. You all probably heard Alderman Keisha Gibson Carter say that. That's why I like that she said that, because I'm like, that fits that mold. Then also the Dr. King, who talked about having what was called a guaranteed income for everyone in the society. So no one will have any issues about food, shelter, clothing, and education. That is Dr. King. That legacy of Dr. King is not discussed, as opposed to focusing on, I have a dream, to tell people to be silent with regard to the pain and the anguish. Be the Dr. King that also understood that his world was not enough for him just to know about Atlanta, Georgia, but he got to know what's happening in Belfast, Ireland. That when we see what happened with regard to the Brits there in Belfast, and we see what occurs with them discriminating against Catholics and Protestants against Catholics right there, we see that happening in Ireland. We go and see the IRA, the Irish Republican Army. We see that happen. We go and see the pain that happened in Vietnam, with regards to what's happening in China right now, with regards to Chinese Muslims and what's happening with them and being put inside camp. That Dr. King said, no, that cannot happen. Or we look and see what's happening in India with regards to groups of people. Or we look and see what's happening in Africa. That we look and see what's happening in Native American reservations that are happening right here. That Dr. King is saying we got to know about other people because we see their pain and their anguish. We got to do something to help them. We got to look at what's happening in Hawaii. We got to look at that and see what's happening in Russia. We got to look at that right there. That is the Dr. King that I love, and that's the legacy. So we say take those legacies, take that story, Dr. King, and carry it into all the valleys. Let that be not about a dream, but let it be a reality. Again, let it not be a dream, let it be a reality. Thank you for tuning in to Run Tell That. We will see y'all next week. Say have a great week. Be safe out there. COVID is real. COVID is real. Be safe. We give much love to all of you who joined us. And we say thank you again. Peace and blessings.